All right, everybody, back with another one. Today we're going to do a little recap on some things that have been going on in the news, over the last few weeks. Want to definitely try and keep that in the rotation at least a little bit, maybe once every 4 or 5 episodes. We'll do like a news recap because there's a lot going on, especially with the Trump administration. There's so many different things going on all around the world, and it's hard to keep track. So I think we'll probably just do like a recap every once in a while and just kind of catch up on some stuff. Also, just kind of get a feel for, what's coming down the road in the future with a little bit of everything, economically, financially, health-wise with the whole Maha movement and, whatever else is going on in the world. But we're going to jump into the first article now. So this is the first article from Newsmax and Trump team, if you want welfare and you can work, you must. So this is definitely a long overdue thing. A lot of people in this country have made a career out of being on welfare and using a lot of those different government assistance programs, which are definitely needed to a degree. Some people they just have a really difficult situation. Life dealt them a difficult hand, and they do need some sort of help just to get them, on their feet. And that's really what the welfare system was designed for, was to help people who had been struck with, difficult times. For example, let's say that a family was normally functioning family and, they were maybe a young couple, maybe like 30 years old. And the husband was working and taking care of his wife and his kids. And then out of nowhere, he gets hit by a bus and dies. And the mom was a stay-at-home mom with no job. Now they have no income because the husband's dead and they are stuck because they're not old enough to where the husband built up a nest egg. Maybe they have some savings, but not enough to where the wife can now retire and live on that money. Somebody in that situation, yeah, might need government assistance to get on their feet until they get into a better position financially. So there are people out there that definitely do need some sort of government assistance program. And I don't necessarily know if it comes through the government or not, but ever since the beginning of America, ever since the advent of this, country, even back before it was officially a country, during the Puritan time and the Pilgrim communities, everybody took care of each other, and even later on after that, the church would get involved. If somebody in the community had something like that happen to them, the community would band together and help that person financially, and they would help them in many ways. So it is a very American thing to take care of your neighbor, and it is a Christian thing too. Government just made it into this weird game where they don't require anything of anybody that's on that program. They let you stay on it for life. They let your future generation stay on it. It's become almost like a sort of Ponzi scheme in a way, where you're just taking from the middle class and rich in America and giving to the poor, but the poor continue to stay poor. It's not like you're giving them, an upper hand and they're getting out of that poverty and getting into the middle class. We're just basically subsidizing certain people to stay poor forever. And there's really nothing good that comes out of that for anybody, for the people paying the money and for the people accepting the money. They stay in a perpetual cycle of being poor. That's not gonna be good for them in the long run anyway. Nobody can live a life like that and be a normally functioning person. It will take a toll on you, not just physically, mentally, spiritually, everything. We weren't designed to be poor. We weren't designed to have a poor mindset and stay in poverty. We were designed to be free people, God's free people. And that's really what America is in a nutshell. It affords people the ability to be free. It's actually amazing to me that we live in the freest country in the history of the world. Even still to this day, we live in the freest country in the history of the world. And there are still people that are in poverty, not just for their lifetime, but for generations. Their grandparents, their parents, them, and then their children are on that track as well. It's very sad to see, but there definitely is a need for government assistance to some degree, just not to the way that we've been doing it. So Apparently, the Trump team, it looks like they're probably requiring a little bit more of people. Congress must ensure that able-bodied working-age Americans stop abusing the welfare system, according to Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr. and three other leaders of the Trump administration. So it does appear that, you know, that is exactly what's going on. It looks like, these people, Kennedy, Dr. Oz, are, you know, basically making the case that people that can work should go back to work. If you can't work, if you're physically incapable of working due to an injury or an illness, or even mentally, there are some people. I mean, I know there's a lot more people today that struggle with things that are totally, totally curable, but they've believed into that they can't ever cure from that thing, like anxiety and depression. Those are very easily curable things for 99% of people. It's as simple as brain chemistry. If you have high levels of cortisol, that's your stress hormone. You're going to be in a constant state of stress or a constant state of, you know, if you're in low dopamine, low serotonin, depression, there'll be anxiety in the mix as well. All you have to do is flip those numbers, lower your cortisol, increase your serotonin, increase your dopamine. And there are very simple, free ways to do that. Exercise, diet, getting outside, getting sunlight, fresh air, having a purpose in life, going out and actually helping people and contributing to society. These are all very easy cures for that stuff. And a lot of people have convinced the world that, they're stricken with anxiety and it's just part of who they are now. It's part of their identity. So there are some people that, are on the welfare system because of literally anxiety. I think that type of stuff needs to definitely be cleaned up. There are people that are abusing the system or they're just leaning on it as a crutch because they're too afraid to actually tackle the problems in their life. But one way or another, it is draining the American economy and it is, draining the taxpayer. And long term, eventually, we won't be able to sustain that and that system will collapse. And that would be a shame because it is actually necessary for certain people that really need that help. But that's, a little bit about what's going on there. And don't mind me, I have a little bit of a sore throat today. That's why my voice sounds like this. It's not the microphone. But all right, jumping into this one. I mean, I think we've all kind of heard this flowing around. Trump's big trip to the Middle East and how that went. I think I even saw that the Oban joined him and did a little bit of a stand-up routine for some of the troops out there. Seemed like an amazing trip because I don't think a president had been there in a few decades. So the Middle East is very happy about that. And also too, you have to understand, I mean, some people are saying that that's a weird move because some people like me that are old enough to remember 9/11 are thinking, the Middle East is the enemy because of the circumstances that went down. But that's just, not the case. It's not the same people for some of the case. Some of those people that are in leadership now were not there during 9/11, so probably had nothing to do with it. No one should be America's enemy. We should stop looking at the world as though they're our enemy. If they want to be our enemy, that's on them. If they want to attack America, that's on them. But there's no reason why America shouldn't be at peace with every country in the world, including countries that may have been threats in the past. It's better for America to go back to the way that things were, where they didn't really have any foreign affairs. We were a nation that was really solely focused on building our own infrastructure. And that's really what happened when, we went into the, early part of the 1900s, late 1800s with the Industrial Revolution. There was a time in America where people were inventing new things constantly. I think the number one job in the early 1900s was door-to-door salesman because people literally, everybody had a new product or invention and they sent out salespeople on the streets to go knock on people's doors and try and sell those things door to door, whether it was a product or a service. But it was a time of economic boom in this country. That's a lot of what tied into 1920s being the roaring 20s, where everybody was becoming wealthy. The stock market was officially established. People who were your average, American citizen were becoming part of the rich class for the first time in American history. And that was really like the advent of a rich class of people. There were always people who were rich, Even many of our founding fathers were rich, but the groups were so small that it wasn't like an entire class of society. So America really was at its best during those times because there was really not much government restriction. There was some stupid things that went on, like the Federal Reserve was created in 1913, and a lot of things, pre 1900, late 1800s after the Civil War. But it was a time of prosperity for many, many people. And if it wasn't for the Great Depression, we probably would have had a 50-year run of economic prosperity in America. And that is, unheard of even to today because we weren't out there doing all kinds of crazy things in the world, nation building and stuff like that. And we were focused on building our country, building our home. But we do need to get back to that, and it's nice to see that Trump is willing to go out there and negotiate with all of these foreign leaders, even if we don't see eye to eye on everything. And that includes, the way we run our countries, the religious makeup of our country, how we view the world and our place in the world. It doesn't really matter if we align on those things. What matters more is can we establish, um, you know, trade deals that work in everybody's favor as a win-win? And can we keep the peace? Can we not go to war with each other? And can we encourage everybody to not go to war with other countries because it also might affect other trade partners of America? I mean, if Trump is successful at the end of the second term, he might literally accomplish what everybody has been trying to accomplish since like the beginning of America, where everybody always says this at every award ceremony and model show and this and that about establishing world peace. I mean, I'm not saying he is the king and he's going to do that. He's not Jesus. He's not God. It seems like God has put him in a position at this time to be a peacemaker amongst men. And that is what I'm seeing a lot of. So it does look like, he's doing a good job. He's landing a lot of these big deals. He's bringing trillions into America. And people really haven't talked about this much, but I think he did already bring in several billion dollars from the visa program that he set up with that whole gold card thing, where he was allowing people to invest $5 million and it would grant them some level of citizenship in America. If they invested that money in America, obviously they would have to pass like a background check and make sure that they're good, decent people. These are not like warlords or drug cartels raising the money and then becoming citizens. This is like people who are upstanding members of society, and he's already raised billions on that alone. And now he's doing it with trade deals and all kinds of other things. So it is quite interesting to see the stuff that he's accomplishing that no president in, I think, American history has accomplished. But yeah, let's take a look at this. White House makes $1 trillion pact with Qatar, including $96 billion Boeing deal. And this is just from this week. The White House announced Wednesday that President Donald Trump has signed an agreement with the nation of Qatar to create an economic exchange worth at least 1.2 trillion, which includes a historic sale of Boeing aircraft and GE Aerospace engines to Qatar Airways. In a press release, the deal is said to have secured a landmark order for Boeing and GE Aerospace from Qatar Airways, 96 billion agreement to provide as many as 210 American-made Boeing 747 Dreamliner and X aircraft, which are powered by GE Aerospace engines. So not only did he benefit Boeing, the plane company, he benefited GE too, who makes the engines. And he benefited, this doesn't get talked about much either, but he's benefiting so many other companies that build parts that go in the airplanes. There are companies that make rubber seals that go in a lot of these, the components for the engine, and those may be a third party company that Boeing sources those materials from. He just benefited that company. He benefits the companies that, you know, any other part, any other screw or rivet or ball bearing, whatever these parts are, if they're not all made by Boeing or GE, they're outsourced from a third party. Those third parties are being benefited as well. So this is stimulating the American economy. This is not just some people will say like he's just, creating these deals for the big corporations that are already, multi-billion dollar corporations. No, it was apparently a landmark deal for Boeing. So this might have been their biggest order ever in Boeing history, which is good for them. If they succeed, everybody else succeeds too. It's a chain reaction. It's not just Boeing, it's the companies that work with Boeing, it's all of their trade partners, it's the trucking companies that deliver the freight to Boeing benefit too. So we have to stop being so short-sighted and thinking, some of the people out there that don't want to see the big corporations benefit. The big corporations power a lot of other little corporations. The big corporations sometimes are some of the biggest clients or customers of the smaller corporations out there, the mom and pop businesses. And these businesses rely on the deals that these big companies get to benefit their company as well. So this is a huge deal, for America overall, but manufacturing as well in America. And see, the thing is too, a lot of people have said, he's bringing back manufacturing jobs, which is great, but he's also bringing back a demand to fill those jobs with people because, you know, these additional orders are going to put pressure on the, factories and different businesses involved to have to hire more people to fill those jobs. And with orders coming in like that, you could afford to pay people a little bit more. So it would incentivize people who maybe didn't originally want to take a job like that because they thought it didn't pay enough. There will be things along the way where they could probably find money in the budget to increase the salary so that they could entice an American and not have to outsource those jobs to other countries. So, this is a great thing overall, the trade deals that he's doing across the world. And don't forget too, some people think like America should be like isolationist. It's never been that way in American history. Even before America was founded, the Puritans, the Pilgrims, they traded with other countries outside of America. They used to ship cargo back and forth on ships to, Great Britain at the time and, other countries on the eastern side of the world. They always had international trade. You didn't just rely on trade from within your own country. America has never done that. So for some people that are, they don't really understand economics or trade or history rather, we do have to have good trade relationships with other countries because America's economy relies just as not if 10 times more on the outside trade we do out of this country than the inside trade we do within it. I'll read a little more. So the White House reports this to be the Boeing's largest ever wide body order and the largest ever order of 7878. Deal is also slated to support 154,000 American jobs annually, not just one time, annually, and will total more than 1 million jobs in the United States as part of the production and delivery process of the aircraft involved. Exactly. This is 1 million jobs opening up. That is huge. I mean, talk about stimulating the economy. I mean, based on these trade deals and all that he's been doing, plus cutting a lot of the fraud and waste that's going on in the government. At this rate, if we continue, America is on track to have a booming economy, like unprecedentedly booming. 2026 might be one of the greatest years in American history if all goes well. If things continue to go like this, because at this point it looks like he can't lose. And he would always joke about saying we're going to win so much you're going to get sick of it. No, I don't think I'll ever be sick of winning. I think it's always better to win than to lose. But uh, you know, it is almost a little frightening sometimes because you think like you win so many times in a row, you almost assume the loss is coming soon. And we don't want that. But I see a lot of mixed things about people online speaking about the economy. Some people are saying that 2025 into 2026 is going to be a horrible year, a depression year, economy is going to be down. And I think a lot of that was riding on the tariff situation. Now that a lot of that stuff is leveling itself out, some people are saying that 2026 is going to be a little bit better or whatever, or maybe even a great year. I'm on the side of believing that if things continue to trend the way that they are, 2026 will probably be one of the greatest years that America has seen in a very, very long time. probably dating back to like the World War II era of economic prosperity, where everybody could afford a car again or two and a home and that type of level of economic prosperity. People won't be in credit card debt as much anymore. People will start having savings in their savings accounts again. I think we're heading to a point of that return of economic stability and prosperity. But things have to continue to trend the way that they are. If they do, I think we'll be there by 26, the earliest, and then, leading into 27 and 28. So we'll see. This is an interesting one I saw recently that was kind of like an odd, you know, situation. I'm still looking into it, but um, it did strike me as interesting because, well, we'll get into it, but this is from the Gateway Pundit. Judge strips New York City of control over Rikers Island, cites unprecedented violence and mismanagement. So that's kind of interesting that a judge is even able to get involved in this regard. Rikers Island, if you don't know, if you don't live in New York City or haven't been to it and are not familiar with it, is basically an island off the coast of Manhattan that's, right kind of smack in the middle of the boroughs of New York City that make up New York City. And it's essentially a prison island. It's an island where, people go to be imprisoned, and it typically has a lot of like juvenile detention centers. But yeah, it's a place where they basically lock people up on their own special little island away from New York City itself. And apparently it's all of a sudden now it's unprecedented violence and mismanagement. Rikers Island has been known as long as I could remember, which is quite a while, has been known as a place that has extreme violence. It's a horrible place to go to prison. Young people go there, adolescents, for doing like petty crimes, and they get locked up there, and they end up, just becoming a habitual abuser of the, system, becoming a criminal, and kind of, having criminal lifestyles after that because it's a system that's really failed. It's designed to keep people being repeat offenders and continue the criminal system. But apparently some judge was able to get involved. Let's see what it says. A federal judge has stripped the city of control over its notorious Rikers Island jail complex, citing unprecedented levels of violence, systemic mismanagement, and blatant disregard for court orders. In a scathing 77-page ruling released Tuesday, Chief U.S. District Judge Laura Taylor Swain officially stripped New York City and its Department of Corrections of full control of Riker Island, citing a decade of failure to protect inmates from grave and immediate harm, including unconstitutional levels of violence, abuse, and systemic mismanagement. I mean, it's about time that they finally did something with this because this has been going on forever. I mean, decades and decades and decades. It's not like a new thing, but they're saying for at least the last decade. Yeah, I mean, New York City has mismanaged like a lot of these big liberal cities, New York, LA, Chicago have completely mismanaged almost every facet of government. They almost can't be trusted with anything at this point except to screw up things. And yeah, I mean, I don't know, like, let's see what happens with this, but I found it kind of interesting because it was kind of a random thing that I saw in the news. I didn't really, couldn't really, expect to predict that one unless you were in that world, I guess. The ruling issued a landmark Nunez versus City of New York points on Independence Nunez remediation manager to take control over key safety and use of force functions on Rikers. So I guess we'll see what happens there. I guess I don't, really know. Like it doesn't really say, at least at this point, who's going to be, whose jurisdiction that's going to fall under now going forward. But I guess we'll see what happens. I mean, that's good. New York really doesn't. Oh, I thought that was part of the article. It's a whole different. Yeah, weird. But yeah, New York really shouldn't. They don't do a good job with any of that stuff. I'm surprised to see that a federal judge is able to get involved in a state matter and overrule. Or I don't know. Maybe the governor wasn't involved. Who knows? So this is a big one. FBI arrests Wisconsin judge for ICE interference. FBI arrested a Wisconsin judge on obstruction charges after she allegedly helped an illegal migrant avoid arrest FBI Director Kash Patel said Friday. The Bureau has been investigating Milwaukee County Circuit Judge Hannah Dugan for trying to help an illegal alien avoid arrest when that person was scheduled to appear in a courtroom last week. Just now, the FBI arrested Judge Hannah Dugan out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, on charges of obstruction after evidence of Judge Dugan obstructing an immigration arrest operation last week. We believe Judge Dugan intentionally misdirected the FBI agents away from the subject to be arrested in her courthouse, Eduardo Flores, who is allowing the subject, an illegal alien, to evade arrest. Thankfully, our agents chased down the perp on foot, and he's been in custody since, but the judge obstruction created increased danger to the public. We will have more to share soon. Okay. Yeah, that's pretty funny. It's funny too because I don't know, some people they just don't learn, or some people they just they think they can do whatever they want and that they're above the law, which is actually kind of ironic for a person who is part of the legal system in this country, part of the judicial branch, thinks that they're above the law. I mean, you should know the law, you're a judge, and apparently you didn't. But what's even funnier is Tom Homan, the head of ICE, got on TV on several occasions on the news and said to the camera, if you are a politician, a part of the government, whoever, and you obstruct us doing our job to deport illegal immigrants, you will be arrested too. Doesn't matter if you're a governor, a mayor, whatever. And I think it's just so funny that some of these people took him up on that offer. And this person is a judge. So this judge, even if they don't do time, because they might not. Maybe they'll just put a slap on the wrist. Maybe they have a lot of lawyers that they know from their years on the job. Maybe they'll find a way to, wiggle out of it to some degree or settle at some point. At the bare minimum, this judge is going to lose their job. So you're a judge. Typically, how it works is a person gets into, they leave law school, they graduate from law school after really one of the most difficult tests, the bar exam. Um, they become a lawyer. They probably do some work with, district attorney's office or something for a while, very low pay, maybe taking pro bono cases. And then eventually they, join a law firm or maybe start their own law firm and, build it up, spend their career doing that. And eventually a judgeship opens up, which is there's less judges than there are lawyers in the country. So there's not as many positions and your competition is thick. You finally become a judge after maybe 10, 20 years doing what you do. And you worked so hard your whole career for that. Now this person, she seems like she's not a young woman, so she's been doing it probably a while. You threw away your entire career for what? You know, this type of situation, she could lose her judgeship and be disbarred if, she's found guilty of everything and this is like a federal crime, it's a felony. Why would you throw all that away? For what? To save one illegal immigrant? I could see if you were trying to, um, help the overall mission and, you had to do it. Otherwise, you would lose, I don't know, let's say they had like, dirt on her. Somebody had dirt on her and she was protecting that person that had dirt on her because either way, she was going to lose her job. If she protects them, and she gets caught by ICE, she loses her job. If the dirt comes out, she loses her job. So she figures, let me take my chance with the dirt. Okay, that's a situation that is understandable. Why would you throw your entire career away to protect one illegal migrant who, by the way, they're going to catch eventually, right? You can't keep them in your courtroom forever. They're going to leave your courtroom and they're going to go and try and evade the ICE officers for the rest of their time in America. So eventually they're going to get caught. What did you gain by hiding them in your chambers until the ICE agents left? You lost your career. That's got to be the dumbest thing you could have ever done for no gain. It doesn't even matter if he got away. You still didn't gain anything. So I don't know, maybe that particular person that she was shielding was somebody that did have dirt on her, or maybe that person was a high profile person that, somebody who controls her was telling this person does not get caught under any circumstances. I don't know. But it seems really, silly to me that this person threw away their entire career over one random person that didn't benefit them by protecting them at all. So it's sad to see that people are willing to stoop to this, and people in positions of power, which it's really sad. It's not like you have a job that whatever, you did that job for a little bit. If you can't do that, you'll do something else. This is something you spent your whole life building up towards. You put everything you had into this one career. You're going to go reinvent yourself now at that age if you don't do time in prison. And then if you do, now you have a record, it's going to be even harder to get a job. It just seems like such a stupid move. And I almost feel bad for some of these people who have like Trump derangement syndrome or something because they hurt themselves more than they hurt Trump. Like if your goal is to go after Trump because you're upset about what he's doing, that's one thing. But all these things these people are doing are only hurting themselves. I mean, you're literally sabotaging your own life for something that you have no control over. You as an individual can't do anything about Trump being the president right now. Just like the people who voted for Trump could not do anything for 4 years about Biden being in office. There's nothing you can do. You just have to ride it out. That's how it works in this country. And if you're not happy with that, then, go live somewhere else. But that's the way it works in this country. Right now, it's a Trump term. The people that hate Trump are just going to have to come to terms with the fact that he's in office right now. You're going to have to live with it until he gets out. You're probably never going to be able to impeach him again unless he does something really, illegal. But everything they've already tried didn't work on him, even trying to kill him. So God has this plan for him, and he's going to see it through. For the people who have Trump derangement syndrome, take a backseat for a little bit, take a break, recalculate, come at this again in 3 more years or whatever, 3.5 years, and vote for the person that you want. That's all. But don't throw your entire life away just because you don't like what he's doing in office. It's going to be harder for you and worse for you, and it will have no effect on him. So you're really just throwing away your life for nothing. But just to kind of put the icing on the cake, for anybody who is, not understanding this and doing stuff like this to try and protect these illegal immigrants who came to this country, under the asylum rules, whatever. Look at the Constitution, look at the 14th Amendment. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. So what that essentially means in a nutshell is if you're not an American citizen, you have no rights in this country. And the last sentence only applies to the laws, whereas if like a person was visiting from another country as a tourist and they weren't an American citizen, they had no rights, but they're still protected by our laws. If somebody shoots them, the person who shot them is going to get, the fullest extent of the justice system against them for committing a crime against a person. So that person, even though they're not an American, they're still protected by our laws. They're still protected to where they will, if they get hit by a car, they will be able to have some sort of reimbursement for their, injuries, their medical expenses, whatever. They're protected by the same laws, but they're not Americans. They don't actually get to be exempt from anything that predated the asylum situation that was granted under Biden. Not to mention, the president has the right to override that asylum stuff. And that's exactly what Trump did. He can't take away anything in the 14th Amendment. He can't take away rights. He can't, do anything like that to American citizens. But people who are not American citizens, they don't have rights. They're protected. That last sentence explains it. They're protected by the laws. They have the equal protection of the laws, but they do not have rights. It does not say they have rights. Okay. So that's an important distinction. They don't have rights because they're not Americans. So they're not actually protected by the same rights that Americans have. They're protected by the same laws on the books that protect Americans that the government was hired to do. So now these asylum seekers, they're not American citizens. They don't have any rights. They're still protected by the laws, but they don't have rights. And the president can do whatever he wants in that situation in order to handle them or deal with them. As long as he doesn't, like, he can't take an asylum seeker and, have him executed. You can't do that because they're protected by the laws. But he can deport them. Absolutely. They have no rights, so they have no ability to not be deported. Just like a president of America can't deport an American born and raised here to another country. You can't take away that person's right to be an American. But the person who's here illegally has no right to stay here, so the president can deport them. But he can't murder them. He can't have them executed. So yeah, I mean that's what really that 14th Amendment breaks down to. And you could reach out to a constitutional lawyer and see if they agree with that, but that is exactly what that means. So for these judges or these people involved in the government that are trying to protect these people, you have no standing. You have no ground to stand on to protect these people. They're not protected by our rights, and the president in power right now has decided they are a national security issue and he wants to deport them. There's nothing you can do. You can't stop that, even with the courts, because the president has that power to do that. He is the chief executive officer of the country. So moving on, this happened recently, the one big beautiful bill. I love the way Trump names all these things. It's so funny because it's like he is a master marketer. Marketing is in everything he does. Even just going on this White House website, the way that they, did the layout and everything, the way that they do all the stuff, it's all marketing genius. It's all stuff that is so, like modern. Like he modernized and think about what world we're living in, right? The White House used to be a place where when George Washington was the president, people used to actually go in the White House and sit in the Oval Office or whatever the office was at that time of the old White House. And they used to sit with him and tell him about their grievances in the community or what's going on, what things he should be working on as the president. And some stuff was probably stupid and insignificant, small community stuff that really wasn't his problem. But bigger issues were things that maybe the local communities were dealing with. That was more of a national situation that the president would have to deal with on some level at a federal level. People used to sit in the Oval Office with him and tell them their grievances. Then things got, a little bit more secure because of all the threats that were going against the presidents and the government, and people were trying to stop our American way of life. And then eventually there was some presidents in between that, like Teddy Roosevelt, that definitely made some changes in the way that we looked at it because it was getting to the point where the White House used to be called the Executive Mansion, but eventually he coined it, Teddy Roosevelt, the White House because he wanted to make it more of a, you know, um, comfortable environment. Like even though the president's the president, he's just one of us. He's in a White House. He's in that house over there on the corners. It's the white one. He wanted to make it more humane. He wanted to make sure that the president wasn't disassociated from the people to where he was like this elite royalty. So he brought it back to, you know, a human level because that's how America was founded. George Washington fought in the American Revolutionary War with his people. Abe Lincoln's sons fought in the Civil War. That is the way it used to be. When's the last time an American president has either fought himself in a war that he was initiating or involved in, or his children fought in that war? It's been a long time. The government has become so disassociated with the American people that they've become like royalty in a way. And Trump has kind of brought it back to the way that George Washington and Teddy Roosevelt and presidents like that have made it where the president is accessible. He lets the press on his plane all the time to do interviews before he's flying off somewhere else to do another deal. He's made himself so accessible on purpose because not because he loves fame and he loves all the glory. Maybe there's a part of that, but you kind of need to be that way to be the way that he is because it's very exhausting dealing with things like this. He brought it back to where he made the American people be able himself accessible to the American people. And even with the website, even with the way that he's done it, he puts tweets up, the Doge website. They have all the tweets for the people to see what they got going on, when they have it going on. I mean, it's really it's bringing things back to the American people again, to where the government is finally accessible. We know what these people are doing behind closed doors again. So it's nice to see. But here we go. This is his tax bill that's getting pushed through. It delivers permanent tax cuts and bigger paychecks. This means an extra $5,000 in Americans' pockets, with a double-digit percentage decrease to their tax bills. Americans earning between 30 and 80,000 will pay around 15% less in taxes. That is significant. I mean, that is significant for the American people to, especially, middle class and lower, to have that type of tax break. I mean, it's already hard enough for people in those positions, to be able to pay all their bills and take care of their families. Taxes are one of the biggest thefts of the American people's money. Trump is finally, starting to give that back to the American people again, which is nice to see. And it looks like, this is going to be something that adds to what I was saying before, the economic prosperity of all the deals he's doing, plus tax cuts. We are on track for 2026 to be an absolutely amazing year economically if things continue like this. No tax on tips and no tax on overtime. That's another huge thing too. Like, you're working your ass off, you're doing overtime, you're already exhausted from a full shift, and you're doing it because you got to make extra money. You deserve to not be taxed on that extra money. Same thing with tips, man. A lot of people, especially like the waiting industry, food service, you might make a couple of dollars an hour because you're on tips. So a lot of times restaurants, they don't pay you minimum wage. They pay you a lower amount because you're getting tips, and they know that that's built into your salary. So they do less than minimum wage, but plus tips, you get to keep the tips, except a lot of people in that industry are supposed to claim all the amount of money that they made on tips, and then they got to pay taxes on that. I'm sure a lot of people don't, especially because it's a cash business, but a lot of people pay by credit card today and put the tip on the credit card. So people are being taxed on their tips. And once this, officially goes through, then yeah, not anymore. That's going to be another great thing for people to, in the food industry, which is one of our biggest industries in America, to be able to make ends meet working and killing themselves at a waitress job or something. And then the historic tax relief to Social Security recipients. It slashes taxes on senior Social Security benefits. Excellent. Taxes on kicks illegal immigrants off taxpayer funded Medicare. So that's good. We need that money to actually take care of our older population. If you know that the baby boomer generation is the biggest generation in American history, and majority of them are in retirement age now. So a lot of them are going to be using our, the Social Security, and then, Medicare and things like that. They need to be able to use those systems to their fullest advantage. But if a lot of that money is going to, you know, people who shouldn't be on it, it's going to take away from that generation as they retire and age out, get older and age, a lot of health issues come up, and in their older age, they just don't have the ability to take care of things the way they used to, or a lot of them are retired and don't have the income from their job anymore. And medical stuff is expensive, so we're going to need all the help we can get to take care of our senior citizens with Social Security and Medicaid and Medicare and things like that. So this is good to see. Border security, it's going to refund Trump's border wall, so they're going to finish. So 701 miles primary wall, 900 miles of river barrier, 629. So this was another big thing that Americans voted for, to finally finish. Trump was building that border wall during his first term, and it's been a long time now since they cut that off. And, he was doing good, man. He was putting the border wall up. Things were looking great. And I mean, they tried to destroy that. They were even going to sell off the fence pieces in the Biden administration. I mean, that's just straight evil, because that's the taxpayers' money that went into those fence pieces. They were there and ready to be installed. All it took was the installation, and they were going to forcefully rip that away from the American people, even though many people voted for that. And there's really no reason to not do it. Even the people that don't care for it, it's a benefit to them too. It's a benefit to them also to have the border wall up, because it protects the ones that don't even want the border wall up. So the ones that do and the ones that don't are both benefiting from it. No one's benefiting in America from not having a border wall except the illegals that are coming in because now they don't have any resistance. And again, job creation, it boosts border patrol and ICE agents on the front lines. They're going to have to hire 10,000 new ICE agents, 5,000 new customs officers, and 3,000 new border patrol. So you're talking almost 20,000 new jobs just on that alone. That's more jobs coming in. That's great. I was hoping to get into a few more things, but I don't have much more time here. We're getting close to an hour for the videos. We'll do a couple more items. One of them was this was pretty big. FBI Director Kash Patel announced that he's going to take 1,500 of the employees and move them out of the DC headquarters at the J. Edgar Hoover building. If you remember, it was all over the news at one point. Before he became the FBI director or even the nominee, he was on the Sean Ryan podcast and he was talking about how he was going to shut down the J. Edgar Hoover building and turned it into a museum. People gave him all kinds of problems for that. And then when he went to his hearing, they actually questioned him on it and grilled him. And he said, he kind of backtracked. I think that's because he knew he had to, otherwise he wasn't going to be confirmed. And a lot of people got mad at him, who wanted him in because he backtracked, but they don't understand the game. You have to kind of treat the Democrats the way that they treat us. You tell them what they want to hear and then go do whatever it is that your constituents voted for. That's the same game they play. But if you tell them the truth, they use it against you. So I think he knew in that moment when he was undergoing that scrutiny that he had to play the game the way they play it. And a lot of conservatives were mad at him. They're like, oh, see, he's a turncoat. They're doing the same thing to Pam Bondi now. She's a turncoat, this, that, or, she's not doing everything that she said. He's not doing everything he said he was going to do. Things take time, and especially good things. Good things take time. Anything that comes easy in life, it's either not worth it or there's something going on behind the scenes because nothing that's worth it comes easy. I mean, nothing. That's just the way life is, man. Everything has to be worked for. And um, you can't expect somebody to just come in and with the snap of a finger, accomplish everything you want them to at home, and then you can go back to living your life. America was put in this position by its American people. We allowed all this stuff to happen for so long, so don't blame the people that are going in and actually trying to do something about it. And you vote for them, and then you go back to playing video games or watching nonsense online. How about giving the people that you voted for or that you supported to go in, give them a chance to actually do these things? Don't just point fingers the moment that they don't do it right away. So I think he was just telling them during the hearing what they wanted to hear, because here he is a couple months later, and sure enough, he is sticking to what he said he's going to do. He's going to get rid of the headquarters, and we haven't seen the next part of him going to turn into a museum, but he did say he was going to do it. So maybe he will um, do that at some point. But this is a quick clip of him saying what he said here.
Look, the FBI is 38,000 when we're fully manned, which we're not. In the National Capital Region, in the 50-mile radius around Washington, D.C., there were 11,000 FBI employees. That's like a third of the workforce. A third of the crime doesn't happen here. So we're taking 1,500 of those folks and moving them out. Every state's getting a plus up. And I think when we do things like that, we inspire folks in America to become intel analysts and agents and say, we want to go work at the FBI because we want to go fight violent crime and we want to get sent out into the country to do it. And that's what we're doing in the next 3, 6, 9 months. We're going to do that hard. And, I didn't know that I was going to do this, but I'm going to announce it on your show anyway. This FBI is leaving the Hoover building because this building is unsafe for our workforce. And we want the workforce.
You just gave up a big nugget.
We want the American men and women to know, if you're going to come work at the premier law enforcement agency in the world, we're going to give you a building that's commensurate with that. And that's not this place.
So there you have it, pretty straightforward. Now, I don't know what he means by unsafe. It could be that the building is so old and it wasn't maintained well because the government didn't invest into the maintenance of it, and it's just not physically safe anymore, or it could mean the FBI has been in that building for a long time. There's been a lot of crooked people in the FBI for a long time. And maybe they, put a lot of measures in place to make sure that the people that are there follow certain orders and commands, whether they like it or not. It seems like he's trying to get out of, you know, an environment that he can't control because other factors or forces have control over that environment more than he does. And it makes him feel unsafe because he is a target right now, especially when you're going after the FBI. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I think that's very smart too, because when you have a bunch of people that are against you working together, the best thing to do is split them up, divide and conquer. So this will actually help him flush out a lot of the bad people in the FBI also. If he takes them and spreads them out across the country, puts them in different areas, you know, it might solve a lot of problems on its own. There may be people in the FBI that were crooked and they had such a hold with everybody being in the office, they were able to work the office the way they wanted to, work the people the way they wanted to. Now that they're split up, you're separating those people that they're controlling and putting them in other places, other environments where they feel safer. Maybe the people that were being controlled finally start saying, you know what, I feel safer now. I'm not in that environment. I feel like I could talk to you. The room's not bugged. You know, there's not an eye watching me every corner we turn. Here's what's really going on. And now you can tackle it at a different approach. That's one of the number one rules of war: divide and conquer, right? Parties are weaker when they're divided. When they're united, they're strong, right? United States, united we stand. I mean, that, that's, it's basic knowledge, basic common sense. So I think that's really more what he's trying to do here. I think a lot of people are looking at it as he's getting rid of the building because he said he was going to come in and he was going to, torch it. And it's almost like an FU to the FBI. I don't think that's it. I think he's smarter than that. And I actually think he's less emotional than that. I think he's coming at it from an approach, like I said, divide and conquer, split everything up, get everybody out of this, snake's den, and put them out there, spread out, divide and conquer, and make it so that we find and weed out the crooked people in this branch of, not even branch, but Department of Government. That's a lot more effective of a strategy. So I actually think this is a strategy that him and Dan Bongino and other people are working on in order to flush out the corruption in the FBI. I don't think this is just about moving out of a building. I think it's bigger than that. And then here's one last article that I wanted to go over because this was big breaking news. All came down to a tweet, but it is definitely something that's quite interesting. I'd love to hear your take on it. If you think it's true, if you think it was just a fluke or whatever. But one thing I will say is, especially people in the, you know, um, departments of government that have to do with law enforcement. They're very cunning. They're not stupid people, and they read deeper into many things. They don't ever just look at things as surface level because that's their job. But Secret Service probing ex-FBI chief James Comey for allegedly threatening Trump in a since deleted Instagram post 8647. So, if you don't know, that's what the post looks like. 8647. 86 is a notorious term in many different industries, including the restaurant industry. It means to get rid of something. Get rid of the 86, the tomatoes on the burger. Get rid of the tomatoes on the burger. 47 is Donald Trump's presidential number. He's the 47th president of the United States. So how the government took it was get rid of 47. Okay. And I don't even think this was Comey. I think this was somebody who posted this and then Comey grabbed it and reposted it online. I don't think he did that post. Like he didn't set up those seashells on the beach in that order. Yeah, this is essentially what it looks like. And it says the Secret Service is investigating James Comey after he was accused Thursday calling for violence against President Trump in a since deleted Instagram post. He was fired by Trump earlier in Trump's first term, and then the 86 commonly used slang meaning get rid of, exactly what I just said. Um, there you go, restaurant bars, literally saying everything I just said. 47th president in the U.S. So yeah, I mean, essentially that's what the post was. And then, Trump administration officials and the president's eldest son, Donald Trump Jr., interpreted Comey's post to mean a death threat against Commander in Chief. President Trump is currently on an international trip to the Middle East. Former director FBI puts out what can clearly be interpreted as a hit on a sitting president. So that could actually be could have been what it was. But what's so silly is we're living in a time where the criminals are literally giving themselves up for the world to see. It would be the equivalent of, back in the day, a bank robber going on the news or taking out an ad in the paper and saying, I, Ron Smith, am going to rob this bank at this time on this date. And, you know, come check me out. Come take pictures of me outside after I leave the bank with the money. I mean, it's so stupid. These people are posting things online. If this was a call for a hit, why would you put it online? The world is going to see it and the world is going to grab it and the world is going to have their opinions about it, even if that's not what you meant. And these people are always typically calculated about what they post because they don't really do a lot of posting, especially people, in politics because, they know they're going to be scrutinized. You have to intentionally choose what you're going to put out there as a man in his position. So this wasn't just an accident. He didn't just accidentally put this out. This is a very specific thing. The question is, was it an actual hit call? Was it his way of sending a message to somebody out in the Middle East when Trump was there, giving them the order to do it in a way where they would see it without him having to actually pick up a phone and then say the words on the phone and then have them record the fact that he corresponded with that specific person in that country that did the hit or that was affiliated with the hit. This is a way where he could kind of go, oh, yeah, no, sorry, I didn't know what that meant. And they can't prove anything because it was just a post. So maybe there is something about hidden in plain sight, but it definitely seems suspect. I don't think this was an accident. Now, was it an actual call for a hit? Who knows? That's anybody's guess. And at this point, the Trump administration is going to investigate it and they're going to get to the bottom of it, but they're probably never going to get an answer out of him. He's going to have to confess to this in order for them to actually find him guilty. So I don't think this is enough to do anything to him. And he's very smart. He's very crafty. He knows what he's doing, and he's been crafty since he was in office. And I think that's part of the reason Trump got rid of him because he knew he was a snake, but he knew that he was really cunning and savvy at doing what he does. And he probably knew that he would not be able to, catch him red-handed. So better to just get rid of him before he's a problem. Sometimes Trump, I think, will leave people in place because he knows they're stupid and he wants to catch them red-handed so that there's no arguments or debate about it. But sometimes I think he knows this person is a real threat. I got to get rid of them before they do something bad to torch the administration that I can't stop. I think that's what happened with Comey's case. He got rid of him because he knew this guy's really bad news. And I think he might be one of the worst people um, in the government at that time when Trump was in office his first time, or at least when he took office, because this guy was, head of the FBI. He was, head of the FBI during a really, really bad time for the FBI. I mean, they were committing some of the worst crimes against American citizens' rights in America. Gotten slightly better, but not really. That's why Cash Patel and Dan Bongino were in there trying to clean it up. But he was also part of the government during the time when, Obama put through all that stuff with the spying of the American people that Edward Snowden revealed and that whole secret project. I'm sure he was aware of a lot of that stuff. I'm sure he was, you know, maybe even who knows, collaborating with them, or at least the FBI might have been. But yeah, I mean, this is not a good person for the country, and he's clearly done a lot of things that were not good. He's against Trump. He hates him clearly, and he probably hates him because he took him out of power. And a guy like that probably craves power. So we'll see what happens with this. I don't think it's enough evidence to actually get anything out of him and get him to confess, and it's probably not enough to even charge him with anything. But yeah, if this was a call for a hit, it's a new way to do a hit call. I've never seen one done openly on an Instagram post like that before, but you know, crazy times we're living in, right? Well, anyway, that's it for this video. Just did a little news recap, try to catch up on some stories that I found interesting, for many different reasons that we talked about today. We'll try and work this into the rotation because I think it is good to stay on top of the news and just kind of like to, put my spin on some of these things, maybe give an opinion or a take that no one else on the internet or very few people are. give some insight that nobody's really thought of, come at it from a different angle. But yeah, we'll work these into the rotation. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Definitely helps the channel grow. The channel's been growing well. Happy to see you guys are engaging with the content, and that you guys are liking the type of content that I'm putting out. I'm trying to put out stuff that I hope will appeal to a variety of different people. I don't want the channel to just be one-sided. I don't want it to just be politics or, business or whatever. I want it to be a variety of things. So we're going to continue to definitely do more and more with the channel, and, come up with a lot of other content overall, but topics and things like that. And, I'm working on eventually getting to the point where we start interviewing some guests. So if you do have any people in mind that you would like me to interview, definitely, you could DM me if you want it to be a private message, or if you want to put it in the comments for everybody to see. Maybe other people can jump on that as well, and like your comment to see how much engagement we get for certain people, and that would help me better determine which guests are high priority for my audience. So definitely do that. I think that's a good way to find out what you guys are looking for and who you're looking for me to interview. But we're going to start getting into interviews this year, and hopefully those go well, because I like to make that a segment of the channel, maybe a playlist. But that's it for this video. Um, Tell me what you think. Put stuff in the comments. Share it with people in your community, friends, or send a video to somebody that you think needs to hear this message. Because I do a lot of different types of videos. I did some recently for Gen Z, specifically trying to help them, figure out how to explore different career paths for them, and maybe look at alternatives to college. So take a look at those videos and share them with some young people, because it might be good for them to hear something like that while they're still young enough to make these decisions before they get a little bit, embedded in their life in a certain direction. Check out the ad at the end of the video too. We got my children's book, which is for sale, and it's actually on sale right now. I think it's its lowest price right now. So take a look at that, and share it with people that have kids. It's a wonderful children's book. It has all 5-star reviews, so definitely check that out. Check out our apparel shop and the Amazon storefront, and all that stuff. These are all products that we stand behind, we actively use, or stuff that we created ourselves. The book, the apparel shop, that's all ours. We did that all ourselves. So we're not selling other people's stuff. We're selling our stuff. Amazon, we're selling other people's stuff, but it's stuff we actually use. So yeah, keep all that stuff on your radar for gifts for the holidays that come up down the road, the end of the year. And you know, stay tuned for the next one.
All right, everybody, I just want to take a moment to promote my children's book. This is Little Boy Full of Love. That's me on the back. And this is a little sneak peek on the inside. It's a great book. It's a children's book. I actually wrote this for my son. And it's available right now on Amazon, Walmart, Barnes & Noble, Indigo, Bookshop.org, and a lot of other online platforms. But more importantly to me, it's actually available in a lot of bookstores throughout the country. You can find out which ones are closest to you on my Instagram page. We highly recommend that you shop local, buy from a local bookstore. So if you are looking to, get a children's book for you or anybody you know, or even with the holidays coming up, it's a great time to, buy a children's book as a gift. Definitely get it from a bookstore that's local to you. But if you absolutely can't get it from one of the bookstores that are currently carrying it right now, and we're in about 15 or 16 different states across the country, so it may actually be in your state, and it could even be local to you. But if you can't get it from the physical bookstore, check out our Amazon storefront. The book's available on there right now. And like I said, with the holidays coming up, you may want to do your Christmas or Hanukkah or holiday shopping early, and you can even order it from our Amazon storefront and ship it directly to whoever you're gifting it to. But it's available on those platforms, Amazon storefront and bookstores and other websites that I mentioned. But I want to take a moment here to look at the storefront just to give you an idea of some other stuff that we have available on there. These are products that we highly recommend. They are things that we use in our daily lives, and it's all organized by category. So it's a lot easier to, shop for the holidays and specifically for things that interest you, particular categories. Available right now, many different items on our storefront. If you can see here, 61 items just in women's apparel, fall decor, because right now we're in fall. 26 items, kitchen items, baking specifically, things for around the house, children's toys, even stuff for parties. If you're trying to save money on a party and throw in your own occasion, you can even buy some cool gadgets here to help you put on a better party. Health and wellness items here, even stuff for Christmas. And there's the book right there. So you can get it from the storefront. You can get it from the bookstores, like I mentioned. But it's available on all these different platforms. It's really easy to find and gift to somebody. Also, I want to show you the apparel shop. And these are some clothing items that we actually produced. So if you're looking to get some cool apparel items, shirts, hoodies, long sleeve, short sleeve, leggings, even accessories, cell phone cases, women's makeup bags, fanny packs, coffee mugs, all different types of stuff, even some, art, all different categories here, apparel, homeware, accessories, drinks, even digital items. It's all on this store, healthybodygoodssoul.com. Anything that pertains to you or somebody that you're looking to get a gift for the holidays. A lot of great designs on here, a lot of cool designs that we actually custom created. Stainless steel water bottles, especially now with the fall and winter. A lot of cool hoodies and long sleeve shirts. This is a really cool one, I think, for women. The original Be Your Soul apparel, that one's actually really popular. People tend to like that. This one's one of my favorites. The free shirt. It's the American flag and it says free and that says not property of the United States government. That one's pretty cool. Got all different types of tank tops, hoodies, long sleeve, short sleeve, tote bags, coffee mugs, even some items for kids, backpacks. So if you're the type that likes to, plan ahead, I would definitely recommend ordering from the Amazon storefront or the apparel shop within the next couple of weeks to get everything in time for the holidays. Use code SAVE15 on the apparel shop to save 15% off everything on the storefront. So order within the next week or two and you'll definitely have everything in time for the holidays. Definitely check out all the links to everything, the Amazon storefront, the book, and the apparel shop in my bio on all my platforms, Rumble, YouTube, Instagram, Spotify. But you can also find them in all the show notes for every episode that I post and get all your orders in time for the holidays. All right, that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. It helps the channel continue to grow. And put in the comments things that you would like me to talk about and make videos on for the future. And I will definitely do my best to do that. Stay tuned for the next one.